Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll meet a former street person who's taking a stand for the homeless.
And Massachusetts sisters working with the homeless who treat the whole person.
Mike Gallagher speaks on sports.
We'll travel to Western Pennsylvania to see a church built from a mansion.
And Father Joe Glass has more insight into our Catholic heritage.
Hello, I'm Jane Rudolph.
And I'm Father Dave McGowan. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
This week I had the opportunity to take a nice long walk in the woods. Fall is a really special time for me because I love all the different colors that it brings. But I was surprised to see how many of the trees were bare.
Well, I guess it means winter's not too far away, and with the coming of the cold weather, we become more aware of the many unfortunate people who live on the streets of America. Certainly, the homeless inhabit the streets all year long, but their plight becomes more poignant as the bitter cold becomes a matter of life and death.
We have two stories on that subject tonight. Up first, we'll travel to Massachusetts to learn about the Sisters of Providence healthcare program for the homeless. Started in 1983 by Sister Julie Crane, this program takes a somewhat different approach to the dilemma of homelessness.
The sisters aren't necessarily trying to change the people who live on the streets. Instead, they acknowledge that the problem of homelessness exists, and they're working to teach the homeless skills that enable them to cope with the situation. Recognizing the individuality of each person with which they come in contact, the sisters' hope is that all involved will come away with a greater sense of self-worth.
These people are really human, and most of us who work down here on the streets really feel that these people can make it with a little bit of hope and a little bit of support.
You can find their faces in just about every city. They live on the street, down by the riverbank, in places most of us would never call home. Nobody knows just how many homeless people there are in America, but their plight has become the focus of growing national attention. The usual community response has been to provide food and shelter. But in and around Springfield, Massachusetts, an unusual program offers the homeless much more.
Okay, big breath. Through your mouth. That's the way.
Here, the homeless get free health care through a medical outreach program sponsored by the Sisters of Providence. They are supported by the Sisters of St. Joseph, the Catholic Stewardship Appeal, and private donations. Now beginning its fourth year, it was the dream of Sister Julie Crane.
Being a nurse practitioner, I had expertise that a lot of other nurses do not have and wanted to use that. And I became aware of the medical problems and the needs that the people had who came to the soup kitchen, and decided that it might be a good idea for myself as a nurse practitioner to see if I could do things for the street people that were not already being done.
How's your eye doing?
Well, it still bothers me a lot.
It still does?
Yes, like a while ago it was itching.
Sometimes there are procedures that have been done in the emergency room that need to be followed up by us, like dressing change, burn changes, athlete's foot that needs to be tended to, blood pressure that needs to be continually monitored before so that the person doesn't have a stroke.
Sister Joan Roach is a registered nurse who runs the outreach program with Sister Crane. They don't wait for the homeless to come to them, but spend their days on the road.
The Ministry of Sisters of Providence Healthcare for the Homeless is a mobile unit, and it is an outreach unit whereby we service the street people, our clients, wherever they are.
The nurses even have a beeper number so that the people they care for can reach them at any time in the event of an emergency.
A lot of gentlemen and women who live over here, people that we do know, sometimes from the soup kitchen, sometimes from different areas. We have gotten calls from some of the gentlemen at times, especially when someone's been very, very ill. And in particular, last fall we had a call to get somebody here who had a broken hip and bring them to the hospital. We have gotten calls from different people at times saying that so-and-so is really desperately ill, and will we go down and try to get so-and-so up so that they can be seen by a doctor. Or we know that somebody has had problems and that they have needed medication, and we'll go there and try to find the particular person. Because one of the things we've learned is that often when people are, using drugs or alcohol heavily, they are not able to make the judgments that they would ordinarily make if they were themselves.
So sobriety means responsibility. It means tasting a good meal, smelling the flowers.
I started when I was 18, just to go out and have a few with the boys. And then it started me losing jobs and losing friends, and losing myself, the most important person, losing myself.
Ruth Connor has heard the story many times before. Drug and alcohol abuse are big problems among the homeless, and counseling these people has become an important part of the Sisters of Providence outreach program. A layperson, Nurse Connor volunteers 2 days a week.
When I see a person on the street who is drinking, who is on the riverbank, or who is in an alleyway, I just wonder what potential God has in store for this person. And I know that if he got sober, he would reach that potential. And so my thought is, let's get him to treatment. I just try to give them hope, number one. I try to support them. I try to encourage them. I try to understand them. And I try to teach them.
Have you been taking the Bactrim? Good. You're taking it 3 times a day? Good. Yeah, it's important that you take it as prescribed because it can make a big difference. Are you having a lot of times it's talking. Just talking and letting people know that there's someone who remembers. I can remember one time a gentleman had a bronchitis of some sort, and I needed him to see the doctor. And he was so glad that I remembered. Like, oh my God, she remembered to tell somebody.
The Sisters of Providence healthcare program offers a vital link between the homeless and the Western Massachusetts medical community. A number of doctors volunteer their time at the shelters. Others, like dentist Richard Elfman, set aside office hours, providing free care to people like Bruce McIntosh.
Good morning, Sister Julie. Bruce, we're all set to take you in. Ready?
No.
No.
We took a rotten mouth, made it healthy, and a lot better looking.
Good morning, Bruce. We're going to have you sit down right here. My main goal in helping these people is to get them out of pain and to try to improve their own home care, to get them taking care of themselves. And although we don't do everything, it's not a total comprehensive program, we do try to encourage them to go on later on themselves. I get a good feeling. I enjoy my work on everybody, and I like doing dentistry. And if I can help some people out, then all the better.
The Sisters of Providence outreach program provides more than health care. It teaches homeless adults how to be good parents, how to deal with stress, how to simply cope with everyday living.
I really do not feel that there is an average client. I feel that everybody is very different. Everybody has very different needs. And to say that that there is a similarity in everybody, I really don't find that any more than I find that in the other people who I know or work with. They have their problems, their successes, their anxieties, just like we all do.
And sometimes, you do feel like maybe you're intruding in a place that you shouldn't be. And those are just judgment calls that you have to make from time to time. And we try to do the best we can in that area so that, the person's dignity is respected, and they also are getting the kind of care that they may need.
Perhaps it's that attitude, the philosophy that homeless people are, like everyone else, unique human beings who should be valued as individuals, that has made the Sisters of Providence outreach program so successful.
Many times it touches in me the hope that I need to continue to grow. And continually makes me think about what does it mean to be a human person? What are the common bonds that make us, you know, brothers and sisters to one another?
Later tonight, we'll have the story about what one local man is doing for the homeless.
So please stay with us for all that and more.
At the Donahue Funeral Home, we're always gratified to hear from the families we serve. Over the years, many bereaved families have told us how much they appreciated the warm, home-like atmosphere of the Donahue Funeral Home. To make such moments perhaps a little less difficult, the Donahue Funeral Home suggests that you discuss with us now, in the privacy of your home, pre-arrangement and the financial advantages and peace of mind it brings. That's what living is all about.
Housing is an important issue these days. Some people are promoting homesteading of abandoned structures. Others are involved with taking dilapidated homes and rebuilding them for the poor. Our next segment is about a mansion that was abandoned and then rebuilt.
What's interesting is that this mansion was disassembled and put together in another location, New Kensington, near Pittsburgh, PA. And when the building was completed, it didn't just become any old house. It became a house of God.
Now, there's church architecture, and there's church architecture. American Catholic churches cover a wide variety of tastes, from Gothic to modern, from simplicity to splendor. But nowhere else is there a church quite like Mount St. Peter in New Kensington, Pennsylvania. The original church was a small wooden structure serving the Italian community, but an early pastor, Monsignor Nicola Fusco, had bigger plans. He found out that in nearby Pittsburgh, an estate owned by the prestigious Mellon family was to be torn down. Built of the finest materials from around the world, the mansion cost $3 million when it was built in 1909. Monsignor Fusco arranged to buy the mansion for a nominal fee, and volunteers from the parish helped to disassemble it brick by brick. Being an innovative group, they erected a splendid new church, using everything they could possibly salvage from the ornate mansion. The Michigan sandstone walls were reassembled one stone at a time on the outside, while the marble pillars, which once graced the Mellon entry hall, now surround the main altar of the church. A marble balcony railing became the new communion rail. Ornate giltwork from the staircases was rearranged to make a baldachin for the main altar. Sculpted tiles of golden brass had to be duplicated in plaster in order to finish the ceiling. Small marble cherubs, which once stood guard at the foot of the Mellon Grand Staircase, now stand as holy water fonts at Mount St. Peter. Even the Mellon family bird bath has found a use as the church's baptismal font. In the Chapel of the Seven Sacraments, the beautiful marble altar was once a dining room fireplace. The treasures from the mansion were innumerable, including this stained glass window by Tiffany.
Well, the World Series and all the hoopla that surrounds it is over, and most people know the outcome of it.
Now that baseball is over, it's time for football widows to lose their husbands for the season. And then when football season is over, basketball?
Well, whether you're a sports widow or a sports addict, our next segment might have a message for you. The inimitable Mike Gallagher is up next with some thoughts on sports.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. Last Sunday morning at the Gallagher household, we discovered we had no syrup for our pancakes, so out rushed Dad to the corner delicatessen. Now there I heard the man ahead of me tell the owner that he had his whole day planned. The Giants at 1, the Jets at 4, and the Mets at 8. The Giants, the Jets, the Mets, he had it all planned. Now you wonder how his wife and children fit into his plans, don't you? Now of course this kind of obsession is the sort of thing that gives sports a bad name. But despite everything, sports do have their place. And I never heard anybody put it better than a Jesuit friend of mine. Now, Father Ed's not very athletic, and he never was. He's not even a sports fan. In fact, Father Ed's what you might call an intellectual, if you pardon the expression. Every afternoon when he was in the seminary, he told me, they had something called ludi prescripti. That's Latin for prescribed games. Some wise guys, there were wise guys even in the seminary, said used to translate it forced games. You'd look up at the bulletin board, see what team you're on, and then you just got out there and you did it. In a softball season, the intellectuals invariably landed in right field. Oh, it could be humiliating. One seminarian who's now a renowned theologian used to go, oh my goodness, whenever a pop fly landed right behind him or right at his feet, as they tended to do with him. Then the jocks on the team, they had jocks as well as wise guys, he said. They'd get quite perturbed, but of course, since it was a seminary, they had to be rather careful how they expressed their perturbation. Now, humility is a great thing, especially for a priest, but it wasn't really humility that was the payoff, as Father Ed sees it. He said this, when a fly ball comes your way, you either catch it or you don't. When you take a swing at a pitch, you either hit it or you don't hit it. When you take a shot at the basket, the ball either goes in or it doesn't. There's no room for discussion of nuances. Sports, he said, puts you into contact with reality. Now, those who dismiss sports miss Father Ed's insight. They don't understand how his friend, the theologian, is a better theologian today for having stood out there those long ago summer afternoon and tried his best to figure out where those pop flies were going to drop. But then you have the man in the delicatessen. Sports don't put him into contact with reality. They replace reality for him. Sports are his obsession, and the hypesters whose words and spiels clog our sport pages and our TV screens shamelessly feed such obsessions. And sports become not something you do, but something you watch somebody else do. They become a kind of macho soap opera. I think what we have to do is to get across to our boys and girls that games benefit you the most and are the most fun when you play them, not when you watch somebody else play them. It's a lesson, of course, that educators and parents, too, must first take to heart. I'm Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
Thanks, Mike. By the way, did you know that Thursday is the feast day of St. Francis Xavier Cabrini?
Yes, she was born in Italy. She traveled to America and, in fact, was very active in the Delaware Valley. And she became the first naturalized American citizen to be canonized.
Well, don't go away. We'll be right back. A few weeks ago, we at Reel to Reel began an appeal for your financial support. Many of you responded generously, and we wholeheartedly thank you. Because of that, we're able to continue to bring you our show every week. However, we still need and appreciate your continued support. As you know, for the past 5 seasons, we've been able to bring you this weekly show, requesting only your cards and letters in return. If you're a new viewer, or if you've enjoyed the message of Reel to Reel over these past years, we'd like to thank you for watching and invite you to participate in this venture by actively supporting the show. Today, with costs rising all around us, we need your financial support. A donation of $5, $10, $20, or whatever you can send would help ensure the continued presence of this program. Send your contributions to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. And thank you for your help.
Coal was once an important energy source for the United States, and the Pennsylvania coal region supplied a significant amount to the rest of the country. Yet the men who worked in the mines were frequently underpaid and often abused.
To make their opinions known, many of these workers turned to violence. How did the church react to this violence? Father Joe Glass is up to tell us more.
Cloaked in mystery, shrouded in myth, forever to be debated, the story of the Molly McGuires is one of the most intriguing events in the history of the Philadelphia Archdiocese. The Molly McGuires story takes place during the 1860s and 1870s in the southern and Monoy coal fields of eastern Pennsylvania. Mining life for many meant living in shacks for homes, buying supplies in company-owned stores, and earning hardly enough money to support a family and subjection to abuse in the mines. The miners in Schuylkill County attempted to win a better way of life by forming unions, but when these failed, some miners formed secret societies and fought injustice with acts of violence. Murder by ambush in broad daylight, savage beatings between rival gang members, and riots against mine company police were some of the crimes attributed to secret societies such as the Molly McGuires. The parish priests in the mining region sympathized with the miners' plight, but the clergy vehemently condemned the miners' use of violence as a means to redress any wrongs. This position was supported by then Bishop James Frederick Wood, who first condemned secret societies and later as Archbishop excommunicated all Catholic members of secret societies. However, the Catholic outcry was not directed solely against secret societies, as this article by Father Daniel McDermott shows. The mine owners and bosses were equally guilty of wrongdoings. In the end, the Molly McGuires were brought to court and 19 men were hanged. Despite the violent nature of the conflict, the Molly McGuire episode made the Catholic press and the American hierarchy aware of the social problems of their faithful. I'm Father Joe Glass with this moment in history.
Our first piece tonight was about the Sisters of Providence Health Care for the Homeless program and how they attempt to give the indigent tools to cope with their predicament.
Our next story is about a man from Philadelphia with first-hand knowledge of the problems of the homeless. Chris Sproul once lived on the street himself. As a result, he feels he has the experience to address this matter of homelessness and approaches the issue with the confidence and conviction of one who knows firsthand. Like the Sisters of Providence, he too is giving tools to those in need, tools to help them change.
Homeless is someone without a place to stay, without a home that they can call their own. To be on the streets for me was the most humiliating, degrading experience that I've ever gone through in my life. You know, to say you're homeless is to admit, and it was one reason why those of us who are homeless will deny it for as long as we can, because to admit to yourself that you're homeless is to say that I'm unloved, I'm unwanted, and no one in the world gives a damn whether I live or die. And who wants to admit that?
This is how it feels to live on the streets. In the words of one who has been there, Chris Sproul is one of the lucky ones, one of the rare few to find his way back from the ranks of society's invisible people. His story begins in New Orleans.
I was in business. I relocated to New Orleans with my wife, and I secured employment at Tenneco Oil Company as a safety officer. I then resigned from there and went in business for myself. The business started to go bad, and which put tensions on the marriage, and at about the same time that the business completely went bust, the marriage broke up, and I came back to New York City with a car and with $1,000 in an attempt to put the pieces together. I lived with relatives and family. The money ran out, and I guess in the sense you could say I wore out my welcome, and I ended up on the streets.
Once again, trying to put the pieces back together, Chris moved to Philadelphia in April of 1983. He was not successful. He spent 11 months living on the streets.
I used to always walk around with a sense of with anger in me and hostility. And when I used to see homeless people talking and laughing and kidding around, I used to always ask the question, what the hell is so funny? What is to laugh about? What is it to be happy about? We're homeless. And so as a result, I didn't have many friends.
One night after being thrown out of the shelter for protesting the harsh treatment of another person at the shelter, Chris decided to fight back. He began to hold meetings for the homeless, hoping to unify them into a group that would speak out for themselves. Slowly the group began to grow, and they adopted a name, the Committee for Dignity and Fairness for the Homeless. Through funding and donations, Chris Sproul turned this abandoned church into a shelter. Called Dignity Shelter, it became the base of operations for the first homeless union in the country.
Originally, when we opened the shelter, it was just for survival. to provide a place for people to eat and a place for people to eat. But then along the way, we start to say that there's more to life than just eating and sleeping, and that shelters are a bad thing, including this shelter, no matter how well-meaning we are. That this shelter has to be a launching pad, that we have to put in place holistic programs. So we now instituted a literacy program. We've acquired 2 houses, which we have rehabilitated ourselves. We have a leadership training program. We want to get people out of shelters. We want to get people on their feet again. We want to put people in places of their own. We want to give them work. We want to retrain them, re-educate them, and we want to make them tax-paying citizens. When we start to organize unions of homeless people, we've gotten just varying reaction from governmental officials and from the non-homeless community. And there are some people who think it's a joke, that you just cannot organize the dregs of society. There are some people who feel that very strongly that it's a grandstand play, that we're performing for TV and for the public. The only ones who have taken this serious are the ones, city governments like Philadelphia, who know, who have felt the impact of our organizing effort. The mayor of the city of Philadelphia know that we're prepared to put people in the street, that we're prepared to go to court, and we're prepared to go to jail. Where we've had sit-ins in his office, where we've been arrested for demonstrating, whether we have sponsored marches, where we've gone to court to win the right to vote, to win the legal right to shelter, to win the right to food stamps. And we've gone into court so they know the seriousness. And I think that throughout the country, the different governmental agencies and people are starting to understand that we are dead serious. So we have got to organize and we've got to struggle. We can no longer allow people to fight for us. We've got to be independent people. We've got to band together. We've got to organize, and we've got to get on our feet. And we've got to be a part of the solution to this problem.
Chris has an approach that is different from many others. When it comes to attacking a problem of this magnitude, we need to view it from different perspectives.
The realization that maybe there is not one correct answer, but possibly a combination of solutions, might give us new insight and help us to tackle this growing problem.
If you have comments, suggestions, or questions, write to us here at Reel to Reel. Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103.
Or call us during business hours at 215-668-9842.
Coming up next week, Father Daniel Murray focuses on St. Luke.
Learn about a housing ministry that works with the poor for decent housing.
Continue your spiritual journey with Father Tom Legere.
We'll travel to Montana to learn more about the missionaries and the Flatheads.
And we'll see a train that was once a church.
We hope you enjoyed our program, and we'll be looking for you next week. Good night.
Good night, and have a good week knowing Jesus is Lord.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.